Have you noticed we live in the age of extreme optimization for the wrong things? We'll spend 40 minutes comparing air fryers like we're defusing a bomb. We'll track our sleep with a ring that costs more than our mattress. We'll download an app that tells us we're slightly dehydrated and then celebrate by drinking a beverage that is legally 80% sugar and vibes. By the way, hi, I'm average Meow. I'm not a financial expert. I don't film this from a rented mansion or own a Lamborghini. I'm just a guy who got tired of treating my banking app like a horror movie I was too scared to watch. Everything in this video is for education and entertainment. I'm just a cat on the internet trying to figure out the system. But the biggest leaks, the ones that quietly decide whether your life feels calm or constantly on edge, we treat those like background noise, like a fridge hum. Yeah, that's just adulthood. Adult life is basically a museum of tiny monthly commitments. You don't buy things anymore. You adopt them. Streaming services, music, storage, a meditation app you opened once during a breakup, a free trial that turned into a long-term relationship without your consent. And it's not even the dollars that wreck you first, it's the mental tabs. Because the weirdest part of modern money isn't spending, it's autopay. You wake up and your bank account has been in meetings while you were asleep. So you do what every rational person does. You promise yourself you'll get serious. You open your banking app like it's a crime scene, and you start interrogating the evidence. Here's the default diagnosis. I'm not disciplined enough. I need to hustle. I need a better budget. I need to stop buying coffee. And look, this is logical. I get it. Because coffee is visible. It's a little receipt you can punish yourself with. It's like, aha, I caught the villain. It was a latte. But that's like trying to lose weight by staring aggressively at a cookie. Meanwhile, your actual problem is that you sit 8 hours a day and your knees make a noise when you stand up. Also, budgets have this emotional problem. They feel like a diet. They're great for 2 weeks until your life does what it always does. A birthday happens, a tire explodes, a friend gets married in a place that requires a passport, and 3 miracles. So you fail and the conclusion becomes, see, I'm just not the kind of person who gets ahead. What if the frustration isn't because you're weak? What if it's because you're operating a badly designed system? Imagine trying to fill a bucket that has holes in the bottom. Like, you could have Olympic level water pouring technique. You could pour with passion, with discipline, with a vision board. The bucket does not care. That's what most people are doing with money. They're trying to save inside a system that quietly drains them through default settings. And the most cursed part, the system is polite. It doesn't scream. It just whispers, don't worry, it's only $14.99 a month, until your entire life is made of $14.99 a month. So maybe it's not a money problem. Maybe it's a system design problem, wearing a money costume. Here's where it gets weird. And this is the first time we'll touch an actual number. People talk about the first $100,000 like it's some mystical boss level. And the reason it feels like a boss level isn't because you suddenly become a better person at $99,999. It's because the system changes its behavior when the base is bigger. And at the beginning, it's just you versus gravity. Every dollar has to be carried in by hand, paycheck, side gig, whatever. You're pushing a shopping cart with one wobbly wheel. But around that $100,000 neighborhood, something starts happening that feels like cheating. Not because it's fast, but because it's finally cooperative. If money grows at, say, around 10% in a year, 10% on $5,000 is a sad little number that buys 2 tacos and a mild sense of hope. But 10% on $100,000 is $10,000. That's no longer cute. That's, wait, my money can move without me. And that's the moment people confuse for, I finally got disciplined. No, You finally got mass. This is where the internet usually attacks your cappuccino. Like, you'd have $100,000 if you stopped buying coffee. And yes, if you buy a $6 coffee every day forever, that adds up. But the bigger story is not the coffee, it's whether your system has leverage, because some parts of the system are basically like secret trapdoors. You step on them, and suddenly money moves differently. One of the funniest examples is employer retirement matching, because it's not a strategy so much as your job quietly offering you a bonus and people being like, no thanks, I'm shy. Let's say someone makes $50,000 and their employer matches 50 cents for every dollar up to 6% of salary. That's a $3,000 contribution, and the employer drops in $1,500. That's not cutting back, that's not grinding. That's the system saying, if you put the key in the door, I will open it. Meanwhile, we're over here like, should I cancel Spotify? Sir, your boss is literally throwing money at the account and you're debating a playlist. Okay, here's the shift. The first $100,000 isn't a trophy. It's a threshold where momentum becomes noticeable. Like pushing a snowball. At first, it's not a snowball. It's a damp insult. You're basically rolling disappointment across the driveway. But once it has size, it starts collecting more snow by existing. That's the part people underestimate. The snowball doesn't try harder and it just has more surface area. Same with investing behavior. There's this historical gap people don't feel in their bones until later. If dividends get reinvested, long-term returns have been around 10.7% for the S&P 500 over the past century. If you take dividends out as cash, it drops closer to 6.6%. That difference sounds small until you realize it's not a difference in effort, it's a difference in whether the system is set to recirculate. That's why $100,000 feels like a spell breaks, not because you're done, but because you finally built a loop where the output feeds the input. Now, this messes with a bunch of beliefs at once. Because if the outcome comes from the system working, then the biggest danger isn't being bad with money. It's interrupting the loop. And that's why people who constantly tinker, panic sell, hop in and out, chase the news, often end up exhausted and behind. Trying to time the market is like trying to predict which elevator will arrive first in a busy building. You keep switching doors like, this one feels luckier, and somehow you're still standing there when everyone else is already upstairs eating the free muffins. There's also the silent tax nobody feels. Fees. A 1% annual fee versus 0.1% doesn't feel dramatic in a month. But over decades, it's like walking with a tiny pebble in your shoe. For 30 years, it's not painful enough to stop, but it changes how far you go. And then there's this brutal stat. If you miss just the 10 best days in the market over a long period, returns can get cut almost in half, which is horrifying because those best days often show up right after the worst days. The exact moment your nervous system is screaming, abort mission. So the system punishes frantic intelligence and rewards boring continuity, which is rude, but also kind of freeing. Here's the part that makes people feel personally attacked because it hit me too. A lot of stuck isn't about income. It's about the system automatically expanding to absorb whatever you earn. You start with a Honda life. Then your income grows and your life quietly upgrades itself to Mercedes subscriptions, nicer place, nicer car, nicer everything. And suddenly you're still living paycheck to paycheck, just in higher resolution. That's lifestyle inflation, but it's not just spending, it's the system defending its current shape. And housing is the big boss of shape. Because if housing eats more than roughly 30% of income, the system gets tight. It's like trying to run while someone is holding the back of your shirt. When housing is heavy, everything else becomes discipline theater. You can skip coffee and still feel broke because the main drain isn't the latte. It's the giant fixed cost that doesn't care how motivated you are. So people blame themselves. when it was the layout the whole time. That's the real relief in the first $100,000 idea. It's not that there's a magic number that saves you, it's that the number represents a point where the bucket has fewer holes, and the snowball finally has enough mass to roll without you body checking it uphill every day. So if progress has felt impossible, it doesn't automatically mean you're lazy or broken or bad with money. Sometimes it just means you've been trying to solve a system problem with personality. And once you see that, it's hard to unsee it. Because the problem was never what you thought. This is Average Meow. If you find the info in this video useful or you have other ideas, please let me know in the comment section. I will see you in the next video. Bye bye.